Welcome, today's story is full of drama. Like and subscribe to stay updated. Let's get started.
I never saw it coming, but then again, does anyone? It hits like a bolt from the blue, unexpected, devastating, much like lightning. While it may not take your life, it certainly wounds your heart, killing love, trust, and respect in the process. What am I talking about? Divorce, of course. A single word that strikes fear into most people. It doesn't just break your heart, it rips it from your chest and crushes it underfoot while it's still desperately beating, trying to make sense of it all. My name is Nathan R., I'm 36 and in most ways just an average guy. I stand 511, weigh about 195 pounds, and have started to develop a bit of a spare tire around my middle. I work as an electrical engineer and do some freelance editing for author friends online. I met let's just say, the woman I married back in college. It happened during my junior year. I was hurrying to my next class when, out of nowhere, a red-headed blur came barreling out of a classroom and slammed right into me, sending both our books flying. "Watch where you're going, a-hole," she snapped. "Now I'm going to be late thanks to you, you big oaf." Taken aback, I replied, "Excuse me, but you're the one who ran into me." "No problem though, I'll grab your books." As I bent down to pick them up, she did the same, and we bumped heads hard. "God damn it." She groaned. "You have got to be the clumsiest idiot in this entire school." And just like that, she stormed off, leaving me standing there, confused. As I gathered the rest of the books, I realized my Calculus 2 textbook was missing, replaced by a Principles of Marketing book. Inside, I found a name and phone number, probably hers. I decided I'd call after my classes and try to get my book back. Until then, I put it out of my mind. Later that afternoon, I borrowed a textbook from Professor Whitman for my calculus class, returned it afterward, and made my way to the student union. There, using the payphone, I dialed the number written inside the book. "Hello, you have reached Lydia and Ken. We're not available right now, but if you leave a name and phone number, we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Please wait for the beep. Beep. Hi, I'm Nathan Roberts, and I hope that one of you has my Calculus 2 book. I have a Principles of Marketing book that belongs to Callahan. You can reach me at the following number after 6 this evening." "Thank you," I said, then gave my dorm's phone number. I did my duty and could wait a bit since I didn't have calculus again until Wednesday. I had some homework, but I could use my roommate's book to get it done. Thank goodness that we were both engineering students. I left the student union, drove my truck to the dorm, and headed up to study for tomorrow's classes. There was a knock on my door shortly after 6. Tommy Wilson said that I had a phone call in the hall. "Nathan, I hope that you can understand on the phone." She started cussing me out until I said I wasn't your man. "What's gotten into her?" "I have no idea, Tommy, but she is a red-headed Irish woman by the name of Erin Callahan. I guess the red-headed temper comes with the name and the hair. You might want to hold the phone away from your ear because she sure cleaned the wax out of mine tonight." "Thanks, Tommy. I'm forewarned." Picking up the receiver, I said, "This is Nathan. You must be Erin." Gary was right. What I got was uncontrolled screaming. "How do you take my book? I needed it for the next class, and I had to wait until now to call you to get my book back. Where are you so that you can bring me my book?" "Excuse me, Miss Callahan, but you also have a book of mine that I would like returned. I can meet you either in the library or the student union in half an hour so that we can exchange books. If that's convenient, please let me know if you have another place in mind. Get your dumb, stupid butt over to the library in 15 minutes or I'll have your butt handed to you on a platter. Now get going, you a-hole." She hung up. Wow, what a temper. I did kind of notice that she was about 54, around 125 pounds, and had fiery red hair. I see that her temper is just as fiery as her hair. And what a mouth on her, that is one that I will have to stay away from. Far away. I now see why she didn't change. She just mellowed a bit, aged until the current time, and has now exploded into a maelstrom of hate and destruction. More on that later. I went back to my room, grabbed her book, and hot-footed it over to the library. Thank goodness that my dorm was only 3 buildings away. In the library, I checked inside, and she wasn't there yet, so I waited outside. I was there about 15 minutes, and no fireball had shown up yet, so I went inside again, looked around the checkout desk, and didn't see Erin. I asked the librarian if she had seen a short, red-headed ball of fire, and she said no, so I went outside again to see if she was out there. Long story short, I waited almost an hour before I saw her headed my way. I could almost see the heat waves coming off her as she headed up the steps to where I was seated on the wall by the entrance. "Well, it's about goddamn time you got here, Erin. I've been waiting for over an hour for your scrawny butt to show up. Hey, race your book. Now where the hell is mine? I asked, trying to diffuse the fire I saw in her eyes. You're wrong on both counts, a-hole. I'm not Aaron, I'm Lydia Foster, and I saw you walk into the library not 5 minutes ago. Yeah, I walked into the library 5 minutes ago looking to see if you came in a different door. I got here at 6:22 and I've been either sitting out here or going inside to look for your sorry but ever since then. I looked at my watch and said it is now 7:36 and you told me to be here 15 minutes after you called me. I left my dorm at 6:11 and I was here within that 15 minutes but you weren't. So where is my calculus book? I would never have expected the response I got from my tirade. I'm so sorry, Mr. Roberts. Here's your book and may I please have my roommate's book? I'm very sorry about my earlier outburst. I had grabbed Aaron's book by mistake today. Please accept my apology for the way in which I've treated you. I assumed that you were some a-hole who bumped into me to take advantage of me. I never expected someone like you. You were so sweet over the phone and then I'm so late coming here. I was shocked by her attitude and by what she said, but I guess that she had every right to cuss at me like I did to her, both when we first met and over the phone. That's not the real me. It is kind of a defensive mechanism that I use when I am embarrassed or upset. Please forgive me. Of course, Miss Foster. Shall we try this again? Hello? I'm Nathan Roberts, and I am pleased to make your acquaintance. Miss Foster, would you care to go over to the student union and have coffee or a Coke? My treat. Why, thank you, Mr. Roberts. I think I'd like that very much. That is how it all started. We had a Coke. Well, I had a Pepsi and she had a Dr. Pepper, but all sodas are Cokes down here in the South. It's not uncommon to hear, what kind of Coke did you want? We have all kinds. We got to talking and then noticed the time, it was midnight, and we both had early classes in the morning. I called Lydia on Wednesday to see if I could take her out to dinner and a movie on Saturday. She accepted, and I had asked for her hand in marriage by January of my senior year. We visited both her parents and mine during spring break of that year, and I formally asked her father for her hand. We stayed engaged until she graduated a year later. I had graduated a year ahead of Lydia and got a great job at a major electronics firm in Denver. Lydia was able to find a job at Everest Industries and we got married a year after she graduated. Things went fairly smoothly for the next 6 years. We had a few hiccups and a couple of arguments where Lydia became as fiery as when we first met, but things went well overall. I asked about children about a year after we were married and Lydia asked to wait another year so she could get established. Brandon came along the next year and Emma came into our lives a year later. Lydia called a halt to the baby factory after that. We didn't want to mess with pills, patches, diaphragms, foam, or condoms, so I got snipped. I was all for it, it could be reversed and was fairly painless compared to having a baby. When Emma and Lydia were still in the hospital, I went to my doctor and got clipped. I should be ready to continue our sex life by the time the doctor cleared Lydia to resume bedroom activities. We continued to have a very active sex life, 3 to 4 times a week, and that was fine by me. Anyway, fast forward 11 years. Emma was in 5th grade, Brandon in 6th, and things were looking up. Lydia was due for a promotion to marketing manager, and I had been made manager of engineering services. Lydia did travel some with her job, but it was only 3 to 4 days every other month. This was something we could handle, so it wasn't a problem. I did travel some with my job, but it was mainly to seminars on new equipment. Those usually lasted a week, and I wouldn't have to go again for maybe 6 months to a year. I had just been assigned to head up a new project. I was working a little overtime, but there was no boost in pay since I was now salaried. I just worked longer hours. During some weeks, instead of the normal 40 hours, I was putting in about 7 to 10 extra hours, and I tried to schedule them for maybe an hour or so each day or on Saturdays. I was only working overtime maybe once every other week. Our sex life had taken a bit of a tumble, but we were still getting it on 1 or 2 nights a week after the kids went to bed. Our house had the master suite on one side and the other 2 bedrooms and a small den on the other, with the living and dining rooms in the middle. The den was actually a 3rd bedroom, but we made it into a den after the kids got older. It was originally their playroom. I had taken up doing some very amateur writing for the internet and did a little editing for some of my favorite authors, but that wasn't much, maybe 1 or 2 hours a night. That usually happened after Lydia had gone to bed at 10. I could have done it earlier while Lydia was sitting in her chair reading and or watching TV after supper. I had recently noticed Lydia having trouble with mood swings and thought that she was sick or maybe taking up her old ways of being fiery when things didn't go her way. It wasn't too often, so I forgot about it until I noticed Lydia squinting last week and asked her if she needed new reading glasses. The fiery temper came out to play for a few minutes, then went back into hiding. This was kind of new, and I asked her if she needed a full physical since it had been a few years since her last one. She said that she would make an appointment, and I dropped the matter. Tonight was a Tuesday and my turn to fix supper, so I didn't work overtime. I had put a roast in the crock pot before I left this morning. I added the potatoes, carrots, peas, celery, and baby onions as soon as I got home. Lydia came in about an hour after I got home and said, "Boy, something smells good tonight." I replied, "Yes, honey, I have a roast in the crock pot and it should be done once you change and relax a little. Do you want some wine with supper?" "Oh, that sounds lovely, Nathan. I'd love some. I'm going to take a shower and it'll be right out." I had already fed the kids and they were in their rooms doing homework. The kids always stopped at my parents' house after school as it was just a 5-minute walk from the school grounds. My folks lived about 2 miles away from us in the subdivision just before ours, so whoever got off work first would pick the kids up and bring them home. I had finished my new project a week ahead of schedule and I was planning to do something for Lydia since I had put in quite a bit of overtime on this project. I was going to surprise her tonight by asking her if she would like to spend a long weekend at a bed and breakfast out in the hills of Aspen in the next couple of weeks or so. I hadn't made the reservations yet because I wanted to make sure that she could go. My director had already said I could have some time off, plus I would be getting a big bonus for getting the project done ahead of schedule. I got a bottle of red out of the pantry, opened it to breathe, and went about getting things ready for our meal. I heard the shower running and thought it a little strange that Lydia took a shower right after getting home. It had been a hot day, so maybe she had been out and about before coming home. I didn't think anything more of it as I puttered around the kitchen, getting everything ready and laid out on the table. I had picked up some flowers from the kids, selling them at the front of our subdivision on the way home. I had them on the table in a nice vase. I set our plates next to each other, then dished up the roast and veggies. When I heard the shower shut off, I cut the roast and was dishing everything up when Lydia came out of the bedroom in her mid-length robe. Her hair was still damp, but she looked like an angel to me. I held her chair for her, poured her wine, then bent down and kissed her neck. I whispered that I loved her and that I had a surprise for her after our meal. "I have kind of a surprise for you afterward, too." We had some small talk as I dished up her plate and we ate our meal. The kids came out after their homework before they started playing their games. I had explained that we needed some adult time together. I think they understood. Even at 10 and 11, they knew that we didn't have a lot of alone time with all the overtime I had worked, Lydia's traveling, and her working some overtime too. I did tell her during supper that my overtime would be gone for a while since we had completed my project early. She said that was nice, but I somehow knew that things weren't all right. I had a feeling of impending doom and wondered if she had to take a long trip. I cleared the dishes away and sat back down next to my wife. She poured us each a full glass of wine and said, "We need to talk, Nathan." "Oh God, what happened?" "Nathan, I'm not sure how to say this, but I want a divorce. And I'm taking the children with me." I stared into those emerald green eyes and saw the fire. I hadn't seen that look for probably 5 or 6 years. I knew right then that I was in for a very bad time. After my initial shock, I asked, "Why? What did I do to deserve the sneak attack from you? I thought we had a great marriage. I'm home every night except when I am in training at some seminar. I make love to you every chance I get, usually 2 to 3 times a week, and I give you everything you want. That new car you drive? This house? God, Lydia, what did I do wrong?" "Nathan, it's not any one thing. It's kind of an accumulation of things. You go into that damn den on that computer and look at porn all night. You never have time for me at night. You don't touch me like you used to. You don't hold me and you never want to go out and party like we used to. It's all that and more. How can you say those things? I sit right there in my chair and watch the crap you have on TV while you sit there with your nose in a book. Then you have the gall to say I never pay any attention to you? 9 times out of 10, I only get on my computer after you go to bed except when I need to do something for work, and I usually do that later after you go to bed as well. I never made you wait for loving in the bedroom. You would either say something or I would initiate it, and we went to bed after making sure the kids were asleep. How can you say I don't appreciate you or don't pay attention to you? I just don't understand. It was only 2 weeks ago when we went out dancing at the Timberline Club, so how can you say those things about me?" Just about then, the red-headed temper came out to play and things got very heated very quickly. Then, as she was screaming her head off at me, I looked and there stood Brandon and Emma in the hallway to their rooms. Brandon was tightly holding his sister to his body and they were both shaking, their eyes open as wide as garage doors. I grabbed Lydia by the shoulders and tried to turn her around, but she slapped my face and turned to go into our bedroom. That's when she saw the two huddled children on the floor of the hallway. "See what you've done now, you a-hole? Get out of my house. Leave now." I couldn't believe what had just happened. I turned toward the kitchen, grabbed my truck keys, and walked toward the door to the garage. I left after taking a quick look back at my children. I got maybe a block from the house when I pulled over and imploded. I was shaking so hard that I couldn't drive. I sat there weeping. My whole life had just ended. My wife wanted a divorce. She wanted to take my children away from me. She kicked me out of my own house. I started to call my dad and I got my phone out of my shirt pocket, but my clumsy hands were shaking so hard that I couldn't hold it and it clattered to the floor. I sat there, slumped over the steering wheel while my lifeblood drained out of me with every sob, every sniff, and every beat of my heart telling me that my life was going down the drain. I have no idea how long I sat there with the truck running and me slumped over the wheel. I heard a tapping noise from very far away. I kept trying to push the noise further away, but it got louder and louder. Then words started to come to me. "Hey, you. Open the door or roll the window down, mister." Just words that had no meaning. Nothing had meaning anymore. My life was gone and there was nothing I could do about it. I might as well just die right here. There was suddenly a crash of breaking glass. I looked up and saw nothing different, but wait, there were some blue and red flashes on the trees and fences around me. Then a hand grabbed me and shook me. I looked to my right and saw an arm reaching through my shattered passenger window. The arm was covered in dark cloth and had some kind of fabric banner or badge on the upper sleeve. The door on my side then opened and I looked that way. All I could see was a bright light shining in my eyes. I thought it was the light at the end of a long tunnel at first, or maybe the infamous light that people at death's door say they see. That is when everything went black. Then nothing. I was in a bed when I awoke with all kinds of tubes and wires attached to me. I was strapped down to the bed so that I couldn't move, even my legs were strapped down. I tried to yell, but nothing came out except a croak of some sort. What had happened? The last thing I remembered was the light. Had I really died? And was this heaven? Probably not. So this had to be hell. But I thought I had been a good and honest man. Therefore, I should have gone the other way. Maybe this was some cruel joke of Lydia's. Oh yeah, Lydia. The woman that ripped my still-beating heart from my chest, ran it through the meat grinder, and then tried to hand-feed it to me. God. She was cruel and heartless. I tried to move a bit to get more comfortable, but I must have pulled on something. There was an excruciating pain in my dick, and I screamed bloody murder. Sound did come out of my mouth this time, and man, was it loud in that room. The door suddenly swung open, and two nurses came running through the door. What happened? One of them asked. I don't know. All I know is my dick hurt something fierce. Can you see what happened? And please tell me, is this heaven or hell? One of the nurses, a woman of about 46 or 51, lifted the sheet and I yelled out in pain again. The tape on your catheter came loose. It was stuck to the sheet, and it pulled on the tape and the catheter when you moved. The younger nurse, who was probably in her late 20s, said, "You're not in heaven or hell. You're in St. Luke's Medical Center in Boulder. You've been here for 4 days now. The Boulder police brought you in after your seizure. They found you slumped over the wheel of your truck. You had a seizure of some kind when they tried to wake you and you were rushed here. You have been here in a coma ever since. Have my wife and children or my parents been informed of me being here? As far as I know, your wife was notified. She has not appeared so far. Your mother left about a half hour ago and your father is due any time now. Is there anyone else we should contact?" "No. No one. I guess I can wait on my dad and see if he can call my office and let them know." "Oh yeah, can I get unstrapped out of this contraption?" "I'll call the doctor and see what he wants done, but I'm sure that he'll authorize that for you." "Thank you, nurse. I'm Nurse Pamela, but you can call me Pam. And this is Nurse Agnes." "Thank you both, but especially you, Nurse Agnes. That feels much better now. Only trying to help, young man. You said that you have a wife and children, and yet they haven't come to see you? That's very strange. I know that they were notified. I heard the officer specifically say that he used your cell phone to call the people on your phone that you identified as ICE. ICE? What's that? It means, in case of emergency. Something that should be on everyone's phone. I wouldn't mind finding out the answer to that myself. What I remember is that I was at home and had just finished eating dinner when my wife told me she wanted a divorce, that she was taking my children away from me, and then she kicked me out of the house. I drove away and ended up here. I have no idea why she wants a divorce. I thought everything was fine until she dropped the bomb on me. You didn't cheat on her, now did you, son? Nurse Agnes asked. No, ma'am. I would never do that. I love my family too much to do that to them. Well, I won't pry. You try to rest now and I'll get with the doctor as soon as I can. Thank you both. You've been a big help, but I really would like to get unbound from this bed. They left the door open when they exited. About 5 minutes later, my dad walked in. Are you all right, son? You had us both worried. Do you know why Lydia just took off with the kids? She did that? She dropped this on me after supper on Tuesday. I was on my way over to your house when I had to stop driving. I couldn't see for the tears in my eyes, and my hands were shaking so bad that I could hardly hold the steering wheel. I woke up about 20 minutes ago. What happened? Nathan, I haven't spoken with Lydia since last week. I tried calling her at work, at home, and on her cell, but I get nothing. The kids haven't been to school since Tuesday. We have no idea where they are. We're getting kind of worried about them. We were also worried about you and wanted to know what had really happened that night. After we got called, I went over there and the house was dark. I couldn't tell whether or not Lydia's car was in the garage. Your mom and I spent that first night here with you and there was no answer when we tried to call Lydia. Tell me what she said, Dad pressed. I told him everything that I remembered and then said we need to call the police and the FBI. She kidnapped the kids and I want them found. Dad pulled his cell phone out of his pocket, dialed a number from memory, then said, Hal, this is Paul. She kidnapped the kids, told Nathan she wanted a divorce, and kicked him out. A pause. Yeah, he said to call you and to get the FBI involved. Another pause. Yeah, it's been over 3 days, so the waiting time for a missing person report is up. Okay, Hal, I'll let him know. See you soon. Dad hung up and looked at me. While my dad was on his phone, my mind was spinning. God, what's happening to me? Why am I thinking and saying these things about Lydia to my dad? She and our children have been my whole life since we got married. How can I suddenly change from a loving husband into a monster like this, thinking all these horrendous thoughts of torture and mayhem against someone I love, or did love until Tuesday evening? That was Harold Price, the Boulder chief of police, Dad said. He's going to call Robert Klein over at the FBI and get them involved in this. Nobody at Lydia's work seems to know anything about this. They may be hiding the fact that she's still working there, or maybe she skipped on them too. Do you know if there might be a secret lover or something like that as the reason for the divorce? Why hasn't she filed if she wants the divorce? Hal's going to check with the county court clerk tomorrow to see if she has filed a petition for divorce yet. Dad, I really don't care where she is. I want my kids back. I want her hunted down like the black-hearted snake that she is. I don't give a damn if she is having another one of her defense mechanism episodes. She went too far this time. What do you mean by a defense mechanism episode? He asked. I explained how Lydia would suddenly turn into this mean-spirited person every once in a while, and she called it a defense mechanism that allowed her to cope with things that were out of her control or out of her comfort zone. He grabbed his phone after I explained and gave him some examples. I was still thinking all these thoughts of what I would do to Lydia if she were here right now. I've heard about a mother's response concerning her children, you know, running into burning buildings and coming out with their robe or dress on fire and not thinking anything about it, or ripping a car door off its hinges to get to their child. It's a mother's response to their child being in danger, that plus an adrenaline rush. Well, fathers get it too. And it seemed that mine had kicked in with a vengeance. I should interject something about my dad. Dad spent 30 years in the Air Force, the last 10 stationed out at what is now Denver International Airport when it was called just Bergstrom AFB. It closed in 1995, and my dad was a part of the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, or OSI, the Air Force's version of NCIS for the Navy and Marine Corps. As one of their higher-ranking special agents, he knew a lot of the law enforcement officers in the area, as well as FBI agents, DEA, DPS, Department of Public Safety, State Police, Texas Rangers, and others whose affiliations were never mentioned but probably belonged to some alphabet soup organization out of D.C. So for him to just dial a number on his phone and get an immediate response was just part of who he was. He was just my dad to me. But he had a way about him that got people to do things for him. I guess he was owed so many favors that people just responded when he called. I have no idea what the hell was going on, but I just knew that Lydia better never harm my kids. Or she would be one sorry woman. God, there it is again. Where's this hatred coming from? I never would have thought this way about Lydia. Well, about any woman, actually. A week ago, I wouldn't have. Nurse Agnes came in a little later, unstrapped me, and took the catheter out. She left the wires that were monitoring my vital signs on me, though. She came back a few minutes after taking everything she had removed out, carrying another tray of stuff. She injected something into the 4-drip line. Mr. Roberts, the doctor wants you to get some rest. We could see that you were starting to get agitated again, and he wants you to stay calm for a little while longer. This shouldn't make you sleepy, it's mainly to calm your heart down some. He doesn't want you too excited. You really did have a seizure of some kind, and he wants you calm for a while longer so that you don't have another seizure. He did an MRI of your head, and there are no lesions or aneurysms, so there was no stroke. But we are still monitoring you very closely. I overheard some of what you said to your father, and I want you to know that he is talking to a couple of police officers and I think an FBI agent right now. I can't be sure, of course. I understand your anger, and you have every right to feel that way. But it's not doing your body any good to get so worked up right after something like the seizure that you went through. You weren't medically put into the coma, that was your own body shutting down. You were tossing and turning so much that we had to strap you down and make sure that you didn't injure yourself any further. I hope you understand me on this. We need you to be calm and rational right now. You won't help your children by being even more hurt than you already are. I took a deep breath and let her words sink in. So, you're saying that I really did hurt myself with the seizure and that I need to stay calm for a while to make sure that I don't have another episode, right? That's it exactly, Nurse Agnes nodded. We're trying to help you get well. Staying calm will really help allow your body to heal itself. Do you understand better now? Yes, I do, Nurse Agnes. I appreciate you speaking to me this way. I need to stay healthy for my children's sake. I'd like to find Lydia, but I understand that I can't right now. I have to rely on others to help me with this. I'll try to think of where she might have gone. If anyone knows her after almost 14 years together, it would be me. We've been married for 13 years now, and this is the very first time she's acted this badly since I first met her. I'm glad you understand, she said with a gentle smile. Try to rest now. I'll ask your father to come back and once he's finished speaking with the officers. Thank you, Nurse Agnes. I was dozing off when my dad came back into the room. Dad, I've been thinking about where Lydia might go or where she would think no one would ever look for her. I took a deep breath before continuing. She has a crazy uncle over by Shreveport, and she had a roommate in college named Aaron Callahan, who came from near Reno, Nevada. Those are 2 places people probably wouldn't immediately look for her. Her uncle is only about 10 years older than her, and I know she writes to Aaron at Christmas time. If my computer is still at home and if nobody has messed with it, there should be a card list in an Excel spreadsheet. I'm not sure, but her uncle may even be on that list. I keep the list so I can print the labels out for the greeting cards. I think Aaron's last name is Spalding now. Dad whistled. Wow, Nathan. How can you remember all that? I have trouble remembering half the people we send cards to each year. I think your mother has a list like that she uses, but she doesn't use labels. Let me call Hal and see what he can find out. Dad was on his phone again when I fell asleep. I was really tired. I worried about my precious Emma and Brandon and what that woman had done to them. I remembered that Brandon had his arms around his sister, trying to protect her from their mother's wrath. I really wanted to strangle Lydia after that slap of hers, but not in front of the children. That's why I walked away. I wanted to protect my children. But the thing I'll never forget is the look of betrayal from Brandon when I didn't fight back and just left. I didn't realize that I had seen that look from him as I turned back to look at my children one last time. Now the question was, would that be the very last time I would ever see them again? Only time would tell. That was when I lost conscious thought and slipped into the arms of Hypnos and his son Morpheus. I think it was morning when I woke up again. There were different nurses fussing around me and Mom was sitting in a chair placed out of their way. The nurses moved and I croaked out, "Is there any word yet, Mom?" "Not yet, Nathan." She reached out and held my hand. "Oh, I am so sorry you had to get hurt like this. I knew something was wrong when she picked the children up on Monday night, but I just couldn't put my finger on what the trouble was." Lydia seemed okay, but there was something in the back of her mind. "I should have warned you that something wasn't right. I just hope your babies are all right. I'll never forgive her for what she has done to this family. We can worry about forgiveness, hate, and everything else much later, Mom. Right now, our primary concern is finding the children and hopefully her as well." Once that's accomplished, I'm going to see about having her committed for psychiatric care because she is definitely not right in the head. I think that's an excellent idea, honey. Your father and I will help you all we can. We love you, and we love your children. We even came to love Lydia, but not her temper. I looked at her sharply. Are you saying that you've seen her fiery temper before? The last time I remember seeing it was about 5 years ago, shortly after Emma started school. Have you seen her mad since then? Yes, son, I have. Twice. She came over to pick the children up one night, and she was mad about something that happened at work. She was slamming doors and was very upset. I tried to calm her down, and she appeared to be much better when she left. Mom hesitated before continuing. The other time was when Brandon had torn his jacket at school. She almost slapped him, but I grabbed her hand before she could. I slapped her face so hard my hand stung. She turned toward me and raised her hand, but Brandon jumped up, grabbed her arm, and hung on for dear life. Then, just as suddenly, she changed. She dropped to the floor and started sobbing about whatever it was that caused her to fly off the handle like that. I know I should have told you about both times, but she made me promise that I wouldn't say anything. Your father doesn't even know about this yet, but he will. I'll tell him as soon as I see him. I felt a chill run down my spine. Mom, has this been occurring more lately? I mean, has she had more episodes recently than before she went back to work after Emma started school? Mom thought about it before nodding. Now that I think about it, she has been acting a little more irritated when she picks the children up, but she calms right down once she sees the kids. Or if I call her on her attitude. I guess I need to call your father right now and tell him everything, including the other 2 times and last Monday night, too. He needs to know so that he can tell the police and the FBI. Lydia is a very sick woman and she desperately needs help. I sighed, running my hands over my face. I plan on making sure that she gets it. Mom smiled at me with tears in her eyes. You are such a good son and a good man, Nathan. I'm so glad you turned out like you did. Most men would have killed the wife who took their children and ran off like she did. I exhaled heavily. Well, if the problem is her fiery temper, Mom, I'll try to get her some help to take some of that anger out of her. But if she is just doing this to be mean to me, then killing may not be such a bad idea. Mom's lips pressed together, and she whispered, we'll have to see what happens when she is found. She called Dad and was talking to him when the nurse came in. She asked if I needed anything. Yes, I said I sure could use a little rest. I'm tired and worn out from trying to keep it together until I can find out where my children are and if they're all right. I'm sure the doctor doesn't want me worrying myself into another seizure. Not a problem, Mr. Roberts. I believe he has left instructions for us to help you sleep. I'll be right back. She returned with a syringe and injected something into my fore. I took another nap.it was several hours later when I woke up. According to the clock on the wall by the bathroom door, it was early evening. Dad was sitting in the chair and he was smiling. I could tell. They found the kids and Lydia, right, Dad? I can see it in your smile. They haven't found them yet, he said, but they know where she's headed and where she was yesterday. She went looking for you a little after you left. She saw the police with you slumped over the wheel and thought the worst. She thought that you had killed yourself or had a heart attack like her father had and that you were dead. She panicked and left with the children. She went to a coworker's home. They stayed there overnight and then left for Shreveport. Her uncle, Russell Navarre, said that she left for Reno yesterday. You were right, son. You knew where she would go. I exhaled, feeling an overwhelming mix of relief and frustration. That's great news, Dad. But how are the kids? Mr. Navarre said that the kids thought it was a great trip. Brandon was worried about you, but Lydia told them that you had gone to heaven and that was why they were traveling. She said she had to try to get them used to doing things without you. They cried a lot the first couple of days in Shreveport, but he said they were better before they left yesterday. She told them I was dead. I nearly shouted, my heart pounding. Dad held up a hand to calm me. Yes. But Nathan, listen, she's not well. The FBI said that they would have people there to intercept her and bring her and the children back home. She will be in custody, but no handcuffs or anything like that in front of the children. Your mother flew up there right after we found out. She should be there just about now. We figured that the children would go to her before me, so she willingly went. They're gonna call me when they get her and the kids. I let out a shaky breath and leaned back. Oh, that is such good news, Dad. I had a couple of catches in my throat, but I held myself together. I do hope that there is nothing mentally wrong with Lydia. I hope and pray that this is some kind of hormonal thing that can be controlled with the proper medicine, and not something seriously wrong with her mind. We all pray that's the case, son, Dad said softly. We should hear in the next few hours. So why don't you get some more rest? I'm sure this emotional roller coaster you're on is hard on you. After all that you've been through with the seizure and all. I nodded. Did anyone call Francis, my boss, about all this? Oh yes, Nathan, I called Francis the next morning. I actually got Catherine, your PA, but she transferred me to Francis. We had a long talk and he said that you deserved a rest, but he didn't think this was the way to do it. He said that you had at least a couple of weeks off coming after that last project. By the way, they sold the project for almost 2.5 times what you projected. Francis said that your bonus and promotion were in the works. My brow furrowed. What promotion? I just made manager of engineering services less than a year ago. This project was my first one as manager. Dad smiled knowingly. Francis hinted that director of engineering was up for grabs, and you had it locked up. I stared at him. But that's his job. What's he going to do? I don't know. But he did mention that Howard Mills is retiring in 2 months. So maybe that means something to you? It hit me like a ton of bricks. Yeah, it means something to me. Howard is Francis's boss. Howard is the director of operations. Dad chuckled. Well, sounds like you're about to get kicked upstairs, son. I ran a hand through my hair, still struggling to process everything. Wow, I have a lot to look forward to. That also means no more travel for me. And I know just who I want in my old job, too. Dad grinned. That's some news that will put a spring in your step. 2 hours later, Dad's phone rang. After a few moments of conversation, he handed the phone to me. Hello? Daddy? Is that really you? Brandon's voice. My son's voice. Tears sprang to my eyes instantly. Yes, Brandon. It's me. I'm alive. I'm in the hospital, but I'm all right. I'm just missing my big man. How's your sister? Is she doing okay? Yeah, Dad, she's okay. She's still pretty mad at Mom right now, but she's real happy that you're all right. We were both so worried about you. We think that Mommy went a little crazy when she thought that you were dead. She sat us down and really apologized for slapping you and yelling at you that night. She said that she was kind of sick and that she needed to get away to think. We had a nice trip to Uncle Russell's and I got to go fishing with him. There was a long pause. Then he said, "Can we come home now, Dad? I'm tired of traveling in the car so much. I just want to get back to school and be at home with you and Mommy." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Of course, you can, Brandon. Can I talk to Emma for a minute? Then you guys can come home. Sure, Dad. Grandma said we were going to fly home on an airplane. Here's Emma. There was some rustling, then a soft voice. Daddy? Are you really okay? Yes, sweetheart. I'm fine now that I know my princess is all right. I'll be out of the hospital and at home with you real soon. I'm still a little sick, but not so sick that you can't come and see me when you get home. Oh, goody. Daddy, I love you. Don't get sick and die on me anymore, okay? I promise, Princess. Can I talk to Mommy now? There was a pause. Then my mother's voice came back on the line. Nathan, honey, she's talking with a doctor right now. You don't have to worry about her seeing a doctor. She is going to be involuntarily placed under observation for 14 days. Then we'll see. They are also going to check her out physically to see if something might be wrong there. She will be in good hands. My jaw tightened. My question to you is, do you really want to press charges for the kidnapping? Mom hesitated. No, Mom. I just wanted the kids found and safe. If we can do that without making a big fuss, then no, I don't want to hurt her that much. If she's sick like I think, and that's the cause of all this, I say we go for it. But I want to hold off for now. I know that there will be something that comes of it with the FBI involved, but I'm not going to press it just yet. I exhaled. Tell the doctor everything about her recent behavior. And tell him she's been squinting when she's trying to read her books. The last book she had from the library was one of those large print books. I think that's the situation. Mom's voice softened. We'll do that, Nathan. We'll be home tomorrow. We'll come see you very soon after that. Thanks, Mom. You and Dad are the greatest parents a guy could ever have. I love you too so much. Now hurry home so that my children can see that I'm okay. We all love you too, son. See you soon. Bye. I gave the phone back to my father and just wept tears of joy. My children were safe. My wife was getting the proper care she needed, and I was pretty much out of the woods as far as my health was concerned. It seemed like everything was finally stabilizing. I leaned back against the hospital bed and closed my eyes. For the first time in days, I felt like I could truly breathe. The homecoming of my children was a very tearful time. I hugged and kissed them both, holding them tightly as if I would never let them go. They hugged me just as tightly in return. Their tiny arms wrapped around me with all the love in the world. I was released from the hospital a week after they came home. Lydia, however, still had another 6 days of observation left. She was at a local mental facility in Denver for evaluation. The doctors needed to determine if she was suffering from a severe psychological disorder or if something physical was causing her erratic behavior. They tested different scenarios with her, some to make her angry, some to see how she responded to stress. At one point, they even told her I was divorcing her. Another time, they lied and said I had taken off with the kids. Her reactions were volatile. One moment, she would rage. The next, she would cry uncontrollably. Then she would go completely numb, staring blankly as if lost in another world. That was when the doctors became convinced something wasn't just wrong with Lydia's mind, something was wrong with her brain. The diagnosis: I finally got to see her one time before her evaluation period ended. She was pale and thin, her once vibrant red hair pulled into a messy ponytail. Her eyes, those beautiful emerald green eyes I had fallen in love with, were tired. She sat across from me in the visitation room, her hands trembling as she spoke. "Nathan, I know that I'm sick. I'm just not sure if it's my mind, my hormones, or something else. But I swear I will find out." Her voice cracked, but she continued. "You probably don't want to be around me for a while. I've hurt you, and I know it. I've hurt our children, too. And if I ever find out that this was something I did on purpose, something that wasn't caused by an illness, then I won't be able to live with myself." She took a shaky breath and whispered, "I don't know if you can ever forgive me." I leaned forward, clasping my hands together. "Lydia, I still have some love in my heart for you, but my trust in you is gone." Her head dropped as a single tear slid down her cheek. I swallowed hard. "I may, at some point in the future, be able to forgive you. But I will never forget. For your sake, I hope you get well, and I hope you learn from this." Lydia wiped at her eyes and took a deep breath. "Nathan, I have something I need to tell you." I frowned. "What is it?" She hesitated before whispering, "I have a brain tumor." The words slammed into me like a truck. "What?" "I apparently have had it for some time, maybe even since we met. The doctors don't think it's malignant since it has taken so long to manifest itself. But they want to operate as soon as possible. They said it's pressing on a part of my brain that controls emotions and decision-making." She squeezed her hands together tightly, her knuckles turning white. "Nathan, I can't authorize the surgery while I'm in here. You have to do it for me as my next of kin." I stared at her. "You want me to sign off on brain surgery?" She nodded quickly. "Yes. If they remove it, I could go back to being my old self. And we could maybe go back to the way things were. If they don't remove it, though." Her voice wavered. "If they don't remove it, I might not be around to kiss my angels again." My hands clenched into fists as emotions warred inside me. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This wasn't just about anger or pain. This was life and death. I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. "Okay, Lydia. I'll sign off on it." Her head snapped up. "You will?" I nodded. "I might not trust you anymore, but that doesn't mean I want you dead." She sobbed and covered her face with her hands. The surgery: Lydia was taken to one of the best neurosurgeons in the state. Dr. Spencer Lang explained that the tumor had been growing for at least a decade. Over time, it had started to press on critical areas of her brain, affecting her mood swings, irrational decisions, explosive anger, memory lapses, vision problems. The stress from work, combined with my long work hours, had aggravated it to the point where it had become dangerous. Dr. Lang was able to remove the tumor successfully, but he warned me recovery will take time. There's a possibility of weakness, loss of vision, loss of balance, or even changes in her memory and speech. But we caught it before it turned malignant. She has a real chance of returning to a normal life. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. The aftermath: Lydia spent 2 more weeks in rehabilitation at St. Luke's Medical Center. Mom kept her at her house during the day, and I would pick her up after work. Our children, Brandon and Emma, catered to her every need. By the time she was fully healed, she had made a decision. "I want to go back to work. But not as an employee, I want to take over." She marched into Everest Industries with a team of lawyers ready to take down the men who had sexually harassed her and fought against her promotion. She won. The harassers were fired and Lydia was promoted to marketing director. Her lawsuit against the company won her $2.3 million. Instead of blowing the money, she put it into an investment fund. The interest alone financed our family trips, including Disney World, the Grand Canyon, a summer vacation in Europe. We made new memories. We rebuilt our life. And slowly, very slowly, Lydia and I rebuilt our trust. It took years, but eventually she became my wife again. I'm not saying everything went back to how it was before, but I will say this, I almost lost my family. But thanks to love, patience, and modern medicine, I got them back. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Could you forgive after all this? Let us know in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories. See you next time.